Campbell continues to occupy an important Labour Party role in the back rooms. It's reported that he'll be in there coaching Gordon Brown and that he helped the Prime Minister in that interview we were mentioning with his friend Piers Morgan. In the meantime, Alistair Campbell's found time to write a new novel, one which many reviewers claim has intriguing similarities to his own life. Alistair Campbell. It's a book, it's called Marr, and it's about an obsessive following of an actress whose life is coming apart in the hothouse of the media. And I guess the reason some of the reviewers have said there's certain similarities is the main protagonist is quite an angry, driven guy who loathes the British media. And they're thinking, who does that recall?
Well, I don't loathe the British media. I have a bit of a problem with the current media culture. And I think you mentioned the Iraq inquiry. I think the coverage of that has perhaps underlined my views of it. But I mean, the novel is basically, it's a novel. It's not a kind of issues novel. I've read the reviews saying that it's about me and Tony, and I have to be honest, it never crossed my mind writing it. It's a story of a film
star. I'm relieved to hear that, because the main protagonist then has makes love with this actress.
Andrew, don't give it away. Do not give it away. And I'm sorry I haven't got a copy, but Alan Johnson has just nicked it for his wife, mine for his wife, which is a very good sign. But it's just a story. It's a story of a film star. And it's how fame changes people, not just the famous people, but those around them. So it's narrated by a guy that she's known since she was a child. And as her fame develops, so I guess does his obsession with her and with her fame. And then all these sort of characters come in, and the media is quite an important part of it.
But because it also looks at the psychological effect of being in that media bubble. I mean, I think of Princess Diana a bit in all of this. Whether it's possible to go otherwise than nuts. When you're inside that bubble.
Yeah, and the starting impulse for the novel was a question I asked one day when I was out with my daughter, and she was getting angry at people staring at us. And I had this notion, is it possible to be, quite well known, and then decide you don't want to be well known again and get away from it? And the answer is probably not. Simon D did it a long time ago.
Yeah, but at great personal cost.
So then it sort of just developed from there into just being a story of two characters that I invented and all the people around them. And I think it is. There's no. You've been talking to papers like John Terry or it's Gordon Brown, whoever it. Once you reach a certain level, I'm afraid you are in a bubble, and how to cope within that bubble whilst trying to keep contact with the outside world is a very, very important part now of being at the top in any walk of life.
Was it a coincidence that this came out at the same time as the Chilcot inquiry, your appearance at?
Andrew, I cannot believe, you know a little bit about publication. I saw that the Mail yesterday was suggesting that I timed it to Chilcot. My powers would be even more legendary than they are had I been able to plan publication according to my appearance at the Chilcot inquiry. Okay. Is that what we call a segue?
There was a key question at the Chilcot inquiry, which I do want to ask you about. When you were asked by Sir Roderick Lyne whether, if they discovered in the intelligence, when they looked back at the intelligence, the JIC intelligence, that it was not the case that there was clear evidence that Saddam Hussein had been building up a WMD programme, if they found that, would it then follow that the Prime Minister had misled Parliament? And you said no, but you then retracted that without quite saying yes. So
no, I didn't. As I said in the note I sent to the inquiry afterwards, I misunderstood what Rod Lyne was saying. I thought he was saying that if the JIC reports had led them to believe that they could not say beyond doubt there were WMD, does that, as it were, totally cut away Tony Blair's case? In fact, what I thought he was saying was, if it said in the JIC reports, there are no beyond doubt words. So I misunderstood his question.
So I'll come back to the original question then. If beyond doubt is not established in the intelligence, when this inquiry looks at the intelligence, does it then follow, yes or no, that the Prime Minister misled Parliament?
The Prime Minister didn't mislead Parliament.
Even if the intelligence, when it's looked at, does not confirm that assertion that it was beyond reasonable doubt?
Yes, because, look, as I said, I mean, forgive me for this,
because this is the question. I mean, this is the thing that people say you can't answer this question.
I've been through a lot on this, Andrew. And I've been through a lot of that inquiry. And Tony Blair, I think, is a totally honourable man. And I also think that what we've taken on this is, what I've taken on this, constantly, you did it again this morning, which is probably why I'm a bit upset, this constant sort of vilification
When did I vilify you?
Well, you compared the novel to the dossier, and it's all fiction, all the rest of it. It's not. And I just think the way that this whole issue has developed now, where I don't think people are interested in the truth anymore, Andrew. I think you're all interested in settling your scores and setting your own agenda. And I'm sorry if I do get upset about this, but I was there alongside Tony. I know how that decision weighed on him. I know the care that we took. And I just think
You surely must understand, 600,000 people died after that war. Now, you may say people would have died if the war hadn't happened, but nonetheless, an awful lot of people, well, I'm taking internationally accepted UN figures on that. An awful lot of people died. That's why people are upset. They're not answering scores.
I know why they're upset. I know why they're upset. But ultimately, Tony Blair and the government made a decision. And he has to stand by that decision. And What we're looking at is the basis on which he took that decision. Andrew,
and if the intelligence doesn't suggest that there was unequivocal proof or evidence that WMD programmes were being prepared by Saddam Hussein, then Tony Blair went to the House of Commons and to the rest of us and to the world and said something that he had no evidence for. And that's why it's an important question.
No, I'm not saying it's not an important question, Andrew, but I think that the reason why it's being asked again and again and again is because those who, for reasons, I do understand how you reach a different opinion. I do understand that.
Well, I don't have an opinion on this.
Others reach an opinion. But what I'm saying, Andrew, is that the reason people are going over it again and again and again and again is because those who do disagree with the judgment that Tony Blair made actually don't even want to see the other side of the story. And I just think look, this has gone on now for however, 2003, with been inquiry after inquiry. And I just think it's ultimately, as Tony said when he gave his own evidence, it's a judgment that he had to make. And it wasn't just about the dossier. It was also about the history of the regime. It was also about the importance of the transatlantic relationship.
If you're upset about that, let's put the dossier entirely to one side then and simply come back to Sir Roderick Lyne's original question, which was if the original intelligence did not support the view that there was clear and unambiguous evidence that WMD were being prepared by Saddam Hussein, then surely Tony Blair was misleading Parliament.
No, he wasn't, Andrew.
There can be no other conclusion.
No, Andrew, he wasn't, because the original intelligence was the basis of the dossier that Tony Blair, in very good faith, presented to Parliament. He was not misleading Parliament. And I also saw the care and the meticulousness with not just he, but everybody involved in that process presented that case. And it wasn't the case for war. It was the case for why he was more concerned.
It was this phrase, beyond doubt. And it
as
wasn't
I said,
beyond doubt,
and as I said to, well, look, it was beyond doubt that he'd used them. It was beyond doubt that he'd had chemical weapons, and
it wasn't beyond doubt that he had a live programme for WMD.
It was beyond doubt, according to the analysis that Tony Blair had from the intelligence services that he presented to Parliament. And look, we can go round it again and again and again, Andrew. And you and I are not going to agree. There are lots of people who totally believe, and as I say, I do understand how they come to a different view. Yeah. But I also ask you and others to understand why Tony Blair came to the view that he did.
Let's just ask one. You said in a recent interview that there's nothing in life that you don't regret or think you could have done differently.
Yeah, that's different.
Now, is that true about? Is that well? Nothing in life you feel you should have done slightly differently.
No, there's nothing.
So apply that to this.
If you apply that to this, or to which stories you chose this morning, or to what tie you put on, you can always have choices. That's the point I was making. And ultimately, the difference between being a commentator or giving a question in an opinion poll is that when you're the Prime Minister, you have to make the judgments and the decisions.
Speaking of Prime Ministers, you're back in there, are you?
I'm not back in there as much as people say I'm back in there, but I'm back in there a bit.
Did you help the Prime Minister with his Piers Morgan interview?
Well, I think as is no secret, I've been involved a little bit more than I was in helping Gordon with PMQs, and there was some discussion about this.
I'm quite interested in that because he said in the course of that interview, I read, that there was a deal with Tony Blair, and he didn't think that Tony Blair sort of lived up to it properly. And he also says that, yes, he has a temper, and there have been pretty tempestuous scenes behind the scenes. Now, I just wonder to what extent this is because there's another book coming out detailing all of this, and it's getting it out first.
I very much doubt that. Look, I think that Gordon decided to do an interview with Piers Morgan because it will probably be watched by the kind of people that maybe don't watch this programme or don't watch some of the other political programmes, and therefore he'll reach a bigger audience.
And their friends.
And that may be part of it, but I also think that as you get up to a general election, I mean, I've said to you before, the only communications that works now really is where people are being utterly authentic, because the public, they hear all this stuff about spin. They know that the media spin, the politicians do it, and they can see when people are being authentic. And I think if Gordon, I've not seen the interview because I was at a football match yesterday, but if Gordon just sort of talks about some of these issues as he really feels them, then maybe the public will see a different side.
But this business of Brown weeps on television, I mean, it's not what we'd really want in politics, is it? That kind of heart on sleeve. You never wanted to do that.
No, but I mean, I've heard in private Gordon talk about some of the things that have happened in his life, and look, you see the headline.
Okay.
I don't believe Gordon went on television with the purpose of crying.
To doing that. Okay. Final question. Your role in the election campaign, exactly what's it going to be?
I think it will just evolve from what I'm doing now. I'm doing quite a lot of fundraising. I'm doing a bit of helping with Gordon and Peter and Alistair and David Miliband and others. I've been clear with Gordon, I don't want to do a full-time job. I don't want to be involved in doing the kind of media side of things, but I will help on strategy. And I'll help them take apart a Tory party that under the slightest pressure I think is beginning to show signs of crack.
All right. Alistair Campbell, thank you very much indeed.